You need the right ingredients to make a great cookie, like flour, sugar, butter. But what about a brand? Today we're exploring some of Toronto's most popular cookie shops to answer one question. What makes a great cookie brand? Hello everyone, it's very sunny now in Toronto and honestly I just want to go out. So for today's video, we're going to be visiting 3 cookie shops around town. So we're going to analyze their design and branding. Think of this more as a competitive analysis where we'll be looking at their strengths and weaknesses. We'll see what's working and what's not. And after visiting 3 cookie shops, we're going to look at the information we've gathered and apply what we learned into redesigning a local cookie shop business. To start our journey, we're heading to Church Street in Toronto's Gay Village to visit Craig's Cookies. So I just picked up some cookies from Craig's Cookies, and I have to be honest, this is actually my favorite cookie brand here in Toronto. But remember, we're not just judging the cookies, we have to also look at their designs and the overall feel of their brand. So let's start with their store. The moment you walk in, you're hit with the smell of freshly baked cookies, and some locations even have handwritten name tags for their flavors, which feels like a small detail but reinforces the personality of their brand. Because when I look at their logo, it actually feels more playful rather than having an overall polished look. The stamp texture on their paper bag actually highlights that feature more. So I think their overall packaging feels more playful rather than having a premium look. I also associate this cookie brand as the cookies for gays, maybe because I first encountered this store at the Gay Village and their tagline is "Eat Me," which sounds very innocent at first, but when you put it on hats and t-shirt, if you know, you know. But on a more serious note, it's actually a queer-owned business and they're very supportive of the LGBT community, especially during Pride Month. This season, they have the Pride Collection flavors with colors inspired by the Pride flag. I also remember them for their pink box with the Pride sticker. They don't have that in the store right now because they have specialty boxes specifically for Pride Month. And because of that, their branding feels tied to something bigger than just cookies. The connection to the community isn't limited to their marketing, it shows up throughout the brand experience. What stands out for me is when I think of Craig's, of course I think of the cookies, but I also think about the pink box, the Pride sticker, the playful logo, the village location, and the overall personality behind the brand. And you know what? I think that's the first lesson we're learning today. Memorable brands aren't just built on a single logo or packaging. They're built through a collection of experiences that all reinforces a single story. And now we're heading over to Bloor Street West for our next stop, Andrea's Cookies. So honestly, out of all the branding we've looked at, this shop has the most aesthetically pleasing and more cohesive design, from the look of their logos to their branding materials, and I'm really in love with the design of their boxes. I really feel like you can give this someone as a gift directly when you buy cookies from them. I also look at their Instagram and all their posts looks curated and well thought out, and I believe they've gone viral as well. Their previous post also shows their previous design, and I think what they currently have is a big level up from that. It looks more cohesive now, and I personally like the bit-in shape of their cookie on their logo. It's very playful and gives the design more personality. And seeing the redesign that they did gives me an idea of how we'll redesign and how we'll elevate the brand of the cookie shop we're redesigning. But for now, let's go to Koreatown to visit our third store, Midnight Cookie. And similar to the Night Baker, the name plays into that late-night cookie craving, but visually, they take a more of a retro diner approach with neon signs and playful details. One thing I noticed after visiting all 3 shops is that pink keeps showing up. Pastel pink especially seems to be a pretty common color in the cookie space. Since pink is already everywhere in the cookie space, I think we should take our redesign in a different direction. And that brings us to our brand, the Night Baker. But before we redesign anything, let's check out their store. Good morning again everyone. So yesterday I didn't really have the energy to do my vlogs, so we're gonna do it today. Here we have the cookies that we got from the Night Baker. So when reading comments online, one of the main things that people comment about their place is actually their unique flavors. And honestly, I have to agree. So just looking at the cookies we have right now, we have the choco butternut, the ube cheese, the turon, the buko pandan, the Milo Cyrus, and their bestseller, which is the ube. So all of these flavors are all Filipino inspired, They're very familiar with me because these are flavors I grew up with. And when I scroll through the Instagrams, I also see that they're doing Asian flavors and Asian fusions with their past flavors. And I think that gives them a unique identity that will help them stand out. Actually, I like that their main brand colors are yellow and black, because when you notice on the 3 shops we visited before, most of their colors lean into pink and pastels. I don't know if that's a trend in this space, but when you look at big competitors like Crumble, they also use a pink box. So when we do the redesign, we can fully lean into their brand colors because I think that will make the brand stand out. There was also a very homey vibe when I entered their shop, from their handwritten cookie flavors and their wall decorations. Overall, I think their business is doing well because they have great engagement in social media and people actually remember their cookies. However, I do agree that their designs need some updating, and that's why we're here. In setting up their mood board, I went back to the origin story. The owners have a chemistry background, and while doing their day jobs at night, they go to their kitchen to bake some cookies. They test new flavors, tweak new recipes, and batch by batch making cookies until they land on something they're happy with. I try to imagine what those nights would look like and feel, so I see handwritten recipes, baking ingredients, textures from baking sheets, and sample cookies for taste testing. I'm sure the real process looks different than that, but what it does is it captures that feeling of experimentation and the trial and error that comes with building a new business. It also gave me a way to subtly bring in their chemistry background. At first, I really wanted it to be the highlight of the logo, but when I explored that direction, I realized I was drawing a lot of inspiration from Dango Cake Lab. Their logo and name reflected the pharmacy background of their owner, so the design and concept might lean too much on a similar direction. So I think it makes more sense to really focus in their name, The Night Baker, while bringing in that feeling of experimentation, research, and discovery. This still adds in their chemistry background and also tells the story of the reason behind their name, The Night Baker. As I mentioned earlier, I really like that they're already using yellow and black. It naturally creates that feeling of a kitchen light glowing in the middle of the night, while the moon just reinforces that idea. I also pulled together a few examples of what I want to avoid. Most local cookie brands here lean into pink and pastel colors, so I'd like to move away from that and create something that feels different. I also don't want the packaging to feel too commercial, and the goal here is to make it feel handmade. For typography, I'm looking for something bold and chunky. The letter forms shouldn't look too straight to look like they were shaped through experimentation. I think the sweet spot sits between Areca Bakery and Groovy Jerky. Areca feels a little too structured, while Groovy Jerky pushes a bit too far into playful. The cozy type becomes the closest to what I'm looking for, a sans serif with a rustic handcrafted feel that's still clean and easy to read. Finally, I gathered a few mock-ups, not for the colors or typography, but to get an idea of the brand applications I'd love to explore later. Things like packaging and posters. And now that we have a clear direction, let's start creating the brand. The first thing that I wanted to work on was the icon. I wanted to keep the moon from their existing logo, but this time add another layer of meaning of it that ties back to the look and feel that we established on the mood board. So going back to our mood board, I kept coming back to the photos of bitten cookies. They already resemble the shape of a crescent moon, so it felt like a natural direction to explore. I started sketching different bite patterns to see how much of the cookie I could remove while still keeping that moon shape. From there, I brought in the sketches into Illustrator and explored different versions of the icon. Some of the bite marks look great at a larger size, but once I scaled them down, they started losing that moon silhouette. So I went with a version that has more defined bite marks, it reads more clearly at smaller sizes, while still feeling like both a cookie and a moon. To push the moon idea a little further, I roughened up the edges and added a few craters that also resembled chocolate chunks in a cookie. I knew I wanted to use this inside a badge as well. Since the moon leaves quite a bit of empty space around it, I filled those areas with more chocolate chunks, almost like little asteroids floating around it. To complement the icon, I wanted a typeface that feels playful, chunky, and a little bit handcrafted, and I think this font called obviously fits that bill. The only thing I was missing was that handmade feel, so I experimented with a roughen effect to mimic the jagged edges of a cookie. At first, I leaned towards using all caps. I tried a few different layouts, but everything felt a little bit too structured. While this version works, the left-aligned text makes me feel like the logo always needs to sit on the far left of the layout, which limits how flexible it can be. So I kept exploring, this time using sentence case instead, with only the first letter capitalized. I was actually surprised by how well it worked. The tail of the G naturally tucks in above the A, and the H and K lined up almost perfectly. It felt less forced and much more balanced. I think this has proved that sometimes the first idea isn't always the best one. And designing their website, I wanted to make their cookies the highlight. But since I only have the images on their website, I had to work with what I had. With a little help from ChatGPT, I generated versions with adjusted lighting, and I also wanted more variety, so I experimented with different angles to create more interesting layout. They turned out pretty good, but the main problem is the texture. When you zoom in, you can definitely tell some of them are AI generated. If you know a better way to do this, let me know in the comments. For their hero section, I had this idea of making some of their popular cookie flavors float, just to create a visual impact as soon as you land on the page. Once I was happy with the generated image, I brought it into Figma and started working on the layout. I tried a few different directions for the hero, but I like the version with the floating cookies the most. So that's what I went with. To make the layout feel more dynamic, I also brought in the chocolate chunks from the logo and turned them into organic shapes that we can use throughout the brand. And now that we have this direction in place, we can carry out this visual direction throughout the website. So from here, I can let you enjoy the process.
Your memories like a relapse. The girl that I don't know. Sweetheart, it's true. The waves still crash under the boardwalk. We held hands. Sweetheart, it's true. The waves still crash. They never stop, despite my broken heart. I'm on the way.
And with that, the redesign is finished, and I'm really happy with where we landed. So let me show you the new Night Baker brand.
I'm on the way.